Things are possibly about to get pretty frothy. The Cardano NFT scene has been absolutely crushing it, and the PAB beta release is ushering in the first moments of the Cardano dApp era. There might be a lot to celebrate very soon, but as in all things, there are mistakes that can be made. Ready? Let's go. I hope everybody had a great weekend. We're going to discuss a new record in Cardano native asset issuance. The Cardano logo seemingly appearing on the cover of The Economist. The Cardano Yoroi dApp connector seeing its first integration with a dApp that I'm aware of. An update on a story about a big Cardano competitor that was discussed on this channel back in August that's now getting a lot of traction. And finally, a word of caution as we go into what could be a very momentous period for Cardano. It looks like Cardano has been busy. Think Grow Crypto is pointing out here to us the number of native tokens issued per day spike that we recently saw in Cardano. They're saying that we reached an all-time high of 61,029 native tokens issued on Cardano. The previous all-time high apparently was 32,673. That is gigantic growth. We're going to come back and revisit the topic of native token issuance a little bit later in this video. But when we do, remember the kinds of numbers we're talking about here. 61,000 native tokens were issued on Cardano the day before this post, apparently. While token issuance is one sort of metric of network growth, showing up on the cover of world famous publications is definitely another type. So look at this. This is The Economist. Looks like the title of this issue is The World Ahead 2022. And down here we see an Ethereum symbol. Apparently somewhere else in here there's a Bitcoin symbol. And if you look right up here, what have we got there? I believe that next to that little windmill is a Cardano symbol. There's I think that's the Bitcoin symbol right there that people are referencing. But this is a pretty big deal. I mean, we've got a lot of stuff about the thing you can't really mention on this social media platform. We've got Biden and Xi Jinping. We've got some renewable energy stuff. And the other thing we've got is crypto, and only 3 cryptos pop up here. I think it's definitely a good sign of mainstream media recognition, and hopefully thereby mainstream recognition when you're one of those 3 cryptos. So I think this is a real good sign, guys. Some of you will remember that in the early days of this channel, I used to ask this question all the time. What's going to be the MetaMask of Cardano? That's to say, what is going to be the user interface by which end users will interact with these dApps? And it was a little bit uncertain. The first time I got sort of a solid answer to that question was when the Emurgo people said they were working on a dApp connector, and it was a little bit unclear whether or not that dApp connector was going to be sort of a standalone thing or whether it was going to be incorporated within Yoroi. Then we found out it sounded like it was probably going to be incorporated in Yoroi. And now we even know there's probably going to be multiple things that will sort of fit the bill of a MetaMask of Cardano. But what we hadn't heard was that any of these types of products had been integrated into any of the big dApps. Now that thing's happened. Here you see Emurgo's announcing that SundaeSwap is integrating the Yoroi Wallet dApp connector into their dApp. And SundaeSwap's telling us, here's a video of our first transaction built, signed, and submitted end-to-end using Yoroi. This is one of those moments when these pieces that have sort of been in parallel development, SundaeSwap's working on their dApp, Emurgo is working on the dApp connector for the Yoroi wallet. This is one of those moments of convergence when everybody has been working with so much energy in this ecosystem, just waiting for these points of convergence when these products can connect to each other and the world can start to see the first hints of exactly how brilliant this ecosystem is going to be. This news, it'll get a little bit of exposure. People will notice this within our ecosystem, but a lot of people won't realize that this is just the first of many of these points of convergence when all the individual all the individual pieces in the ecosystem start connecting up, because now we've got the Plutus application backend, and all of these things can start forming connections like little neurons in your brain when you're learning brand new things. It's going to be cool to watch this continue to go down iteratively over and over again. I don't think it's ever been any kind of a secret that as a top 10 Gen 3 blockchain, Cardano's got competitors. And I think it's been a few different people over the last few days have pointed out this thread to me about one of our competitors. So in this thread, the first post starts out, hey, in early April 2020, the Solana team stated that the total circulating supply was 8.2 million. In reality, the total circulating supply was above 20 million. So just know that I'm not stating that as fact. I'm just reading exactly what this was in this post. But the thing is, we've talked about this before. You'll notice this post. This post went up on November 5th, and it's gotten quite a bit of traction. There have been 651 retweets, 245 quote retweets, and over 2,000, over 2,200 likes. But this is something we've talked about before. If you were listening to this channel back in August, you might remember this video called Cardano and Real Blockchain Ownership. In that video, there's a section called Shouldn't Be a Surprise that starts at 1359. In that section, we covered this little article pushed out by Solana on April 28th, 2020. If I'm reading that thread correctly, I believe it's covering the same information that is, or at least a lot of the same information that's sort of contained in this article right here. But I'm not bringing this up to rehash a topic we've already covered. I think it's significant because of what it represents. If we go to the page of that thread author, we see a post here all about DOT. He says the DOT token is not required for its parachains, which by design is where all of the utility lies. To make things even worse, DOT has a fixed yearly inflation of 10% without any fee burning mechanisms. DOT cannot compete as a store of value or money. Again, that's just his post. I'm not saying any of that's true, but when we scroll a little further down his posts, we find this one. Ethereum is everything that I wanted Bitcoin to become. Ever since I first discovered BTC in 2013, I've spent the rest of my life dedicated to cryptocurrency. Ethereum is the fulfillment of Bitcoin's promise. DeFi, secure, scarce, and scaling without sacrificing decentralization. This is an Ethereum maximalist, guys. This isn't the Cardano community pushing this out. This is Ethereum. What you notice is that Solana kind of roars up into the top 5. And immediately we start seeing posts like this. We know that that information has been out there. I assume that post was on the Solana. I think that was their Medium. But that post from Solana has been out there, I think, since April 2020. And we didn't really hear a lot about it. We discussed it on the channel back in August, and again, it wasn't a big deal. But as soon as Solana roars into the top 5, we see this, pretty significant thread all about Solana, sort of rehashing some stuff that they were publicly talking about going clear back to April 2020. I think this is a little bit of perspective on the amount of sort of negativity towards Cardano. I don't think it's actually, I think a big piece of it is not anything about Cardano. It's just that we were seen so long as the primary usurper of Ethereum. And now that Solana has sort of like shot itself up into the top 5, Solana is starting to take some of the heat. So as much as people, I think sometimes in our ecosystem, people ask quite a bit, why does Cardano get so much heat? Why is it that there's so much hatred directed towards Cardano? I actually don't think it's anything about us. I think, there are certain things, of course, there's always a subject. It's always topical. But I think a big part of the motivation for all the hate is just that we were seen as the most likely usurper. Ethereum, certain people, certain types of characters in the Ethereum ecosystem are always going to attack whatever they think is the biggest threat. And I think this thread is kind of an example of that. In the past, it seems like a lot of the, you know, it was always us. It was always Cardano. We were always the target of all that. Now with this big move by Solana, we're seeing, it's kind of interesting because now other people are saying the same things about Solana that I think people in our ecosystem have known for a long time. But Solana is starting to share some of that heat that has historically been targeted just at us in Cardano. I've mentioned before that I was around for the 2013 crypto bubble and the 2017 crypto bubble. And let me tell you, I watched the whole 2013 thing sort of unwind before my eyes. It was breathtaking. Mount Gox just started melting down. The decline in value in Bitcoin was amazing. Watching it on the run up, it seemed like unstoppable. Just this charging beast that couldn't be stopped. And the technology was still so novel, even in 2013, right? It had been around for 4 years, but most of us only heard about it, shortly before that 2013 run up. And it seemed like such amazing technology, so unstoppable. When Mt. Gox started melting down, it was incredible. I mean, there were photos online of people protesting outside of the Mt. Gox offices, wanting their money back. And it was slowly becoming clear that their money was not coming back. And to be fair, a lot of that was tied up in the very central role that the Mt. Gox exchange played in crypto back then. But even having said that, when 2017 came along and we had the ICO craze, initial coin offerings, all of a sudden you could do ICOs on Ethereum. It was a brand new means of capital formation. And guess what? Nobody was observing any accredited investor roles. It was crazy. It was like a whole generation of people all of a sudden could invest in very early stage ventures for the first time. It was amazing. I mean, you had 19-year-olds, even younger. I mean, teenagers in their parents' basements, and they're evaluating whether they should throw, a couple grand or way more into, various ICOs. The problem with all that, and it worked for a long time. I mean, and a lot of people would come in and talk to me about the ICOs they were investing in. I mean, when I say talk to me, I don't mean they were discussing it with me. I mean, they were sort of telling me about what genius crypto investors they were. And they were investing in all of the ones that failed, but in those days, none of them were failing yet. So everybody thought they were an ICO investment genius, right? And even at the time, because I had seen the 2013 bubble, sort of inflate and burst, I was trying to tell people look, there's no way that all of these projects can continue going up. It's just too much money. It would require way too much money for this to go on forever. This is probably going to come to an end. The music's going to stop at some point, and a huge number of these projects are going to fail. It was super obvious. The problem we're running into now is that the days of the tech bubble, 2013 December, 2013 November, 2017 November and December felt exactly like now. I saw this post today. This poster says, it feels a bit like November 2017. Back then, despite the speculative mania, people still noted that 90% of all startups fell and ICOs would be no different. I'd guess 99% failed. I think he's right. He says, in November 2021, we should take as given that 90% plus of all DeFi assets and NFTs will fail. Be careful. I saw this, and what worried me about this was not that any of it was new information. What worried me is how few people are saying this, just like in 2017, just like in 2013, just like during the tech bubble. It felt exactly the same all these times. Now feels exactly like 2017, November, December, exactly like 2013, November, December. They felt exactly like now. There was just as much positivity and belief that the music wouldn't end then as now. But The calendar timing is exactly the same. We saw highs in November, December, and November, December in those last two cycles as well. In Cardano, DeFi is just barely hitting because we just barely saw the beta release of the Plutus application backend, which is required for most of those DeFi dApps to really start their final testing and the run up towards their final product so they can actually release out to the end consumers. So we've kind of been spared the fate of a gigantic amount of investment flowing into the kinds of DeFi assets that the poster here is afraid of as investments. And even though we don't really talk about investment on this channel, I think it's important for everybody to realize that in the past, you can say as a matter of fact that we have seen gigantic bubbles inflate and suddenly crash in crypto. In fact, that's pretty much all we've seen. There's always been talk of these super cycles and how this brand new novel technology is bringing us something that can only go up forever. And, we're not going to see the bubble deflate anytime soon. It's always that it's not going to deflate anytime soon. What Cardano hasn't been spared the fate of is NFTs. And I love the Cardano NFT ecosystem. Cardano NFTs are awesome. And I really appreciate that it's happened and the crazy amount of effort that everybody's put into Cardano NFTs. I think it's a beautiful part of the Cardano ecosystem. I'm really glad we have it. However, the valuations on a lot of the Cardano NFT projects are very reminiscent to me of a lot of the ICO valuations. And I find it very hard to disagree with what the poster is saying here. When he says we should take as given that 90% of all DeFi assets and NFTs will fail, be careful, that is pretty consistent with what I've seen in the past in crypto. The big cycles, like the NFT scene across crypto right now feels exactly the same as the ICO scene did in 2017. It seems super obvious to me then, exactly what he's saying here, that 9 out of 10 of these projects would fail in 2017, these ICOs. And it feels the NFT scene, the amount of frothiness going on in the NFT scene across crypto feels exactly the same. It needs to be 100% clear to everyone that not only would it not be inconsistent with the history of crypto for 99% of these projects to all lose 90% of their value, it would actually be very consistent with the history of crypto if all of these projects that we know and love, if 99% of them lost the vast majority of their value pretty quickly. If it's all play money for you, good on you. But if you've got any amount of money in there that you would care about losing, be careful from now and into 2022. If that's the case for you, you got to be careful because the history of crypto tells us that bad things are actually possible. One of the responses to this thread highlighted something else that I think you should be aware of. So Caitlin Long, who you know well if you listen to this channel, also posted this. She said, also feels like November 2017 because new round of debanking is coming. See the president's working group report, which we have talked about on this channel very recently. She says, as bank examiners start implementing the new policies on banks, watch crypto lose bank accounts again. 4 years ago, market reacted by pivoting to stablecoins. And you also know we've had discussions about where it looks like the feds are going with stablecoins. I know. That's a huge amount of talk of things to be wary of. And that type of discussion, it's not our favorite discussion to have in crypto. There's going to be a day down the road where if I didn't say these things, I would feel guilty for not having said them. So just wanted to get this out of the way as we go into this November, December, January, February period, because things could get pretty crazy. And everybody needs to remember the history of crypto hasn't been that things go up forever. Talk to you tomorrow.